Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Wake Up Call. My name's Kirby, Wright. I'm dialing in from Estill Springs, Tennessee, where it's a little chilly this morning. And happy Monday to everybody. We're in the book Little Things Matter by Todd Smith. If you don't have that book, it's a good one to have in your library. If you don't want to buy it, you can. I think there's a free download floating around. You can get a hold of it. But we're going through some great information every day here at 8:15. And if you can't make this for some reason, you want to catch up, you can always go to zwakeupcall.com to catch the recording. So with that, my job here mainly is to introduce our speaker, and that is my wife and the founder of the Wake Up Call, Miss Cindy Wright. Cindy, you got the call.
All right. Thank you, Kirby. Did you record?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Wake Up Call. We're on chapter 22, the art of listening. So if you've got a pen and a piece of paper, you might want to take some notes because I know I need to. Being a good listener is one of the most important skills to master if you want to build meaningful relationships or advance your career. When you listen intentionally, that's a big word, intentionally, you demonstrate your interest in what is being said and your respect for the individual saying it. Thoughtful listening is a magnetic force that draws people to you, building trust and rapport along the way. Have you ever talked to someone and noticed that he or she wasn't really listening to you? How did it make you feel? Unimportant? Disrespected? Ignored? Remember those feelings and work diligently to ensure that people never feel the same way when conversing with you. I always value the lessons I learned from my role models. My dad's expertise in this area has been a shining example. He is the best listener I know. Everyone who meets him forms an instant bond with him, and I'm convinced the number one reason for this immediate connection is his heartfelt and sincere interest in others, demonstrated through attentive listening. Here's 10 valuable tips to become a good listener. Number one, make eye contact. The first step in being an intentional listener is to make eye contact with people while they are talking. Direct eye contact demonstrates genuine interest in the person and the conversation. Number two, be present. This is what Kirby says to me all the time. I must admit that sometimes my wife accuses me of not being present when she is talking. Even though I am looking at her, perhaps I have that the lights are on but no one is home look. When listening, try not to let your mind wander. Instead, focus your attention on the person and what's being said. Be aware that people do notice when you're not paying attention. Number three, don't send signals of impatience. When you are listening, don't give any clues that you are ready to respond. Don't point your finger, open your mouth, or fidget. When I see that people are waiting on pins and needles to respond, I have a sense that they are more concerned with how they are going to respond than with listening to what I have to say. Number four, don't interrupt. One of the most prevalent problems in our society is not allowing people to finish a thought without interrupting them. If you start talking at the same time someone else is trying to finish his or her thought, stop and say, "I'm sorry, please continue." Then let them finish before responding. Even if what you have to say is important or it's an answer to the question they raised, so show them your respect by letting them finish. Number five, use the 2-second rule. Even though you may feel the urge to present your viewpoint, allowing whatever pops into your head to pop out of your mouth is disrespectful to the speaker. During all of your conversations, wait 2 seconds after the person stops speaking before you respond. Often people are just pausing to gather their thoughts before continuing the conversation. This is especially important during phone conversations because you can't make eye contact or see facial expressions. If you find yourself talking at the same time someone else is talking, remind yourself to use the 2-second rule. Number 6, show a sincere interest. This is in one area where my dad stands out from most people. When he listens, he really cares about what is being said, even if it's a subject that doesn't concern him. This is his way of demonstrating what people say is important and that he values them as individuals. Number 7, listen for the message within the message. Another one of my dad's skills is to listen for the subtle message hidden in the conversation. Dad says that most people are looking for encouragement, answers, or insights to the subjects they discuss. By listening intently, he is able to grasp the topic, allowing him to engage and connect on a deeper level. Number 8, don't change the subject. When you are engaged in a conversation, don't change the subject unless the discussion is finished. This behavior is obvious in small group settings, business meetings, and social encounters. If you change the subject prematurely, you demonstrate a lack of interest in the discussion and indicate that you think what you have to say is more important. Number 9, respond by asking questions. Asking questions during a conversation shows a sincere interest in the topic. My dad believes that most people operate at the feeling level rather than the thinking level. His favorite question is to ask people how they feel about the subject they have raised. Number 10, don't start a side conversation. When you are part of a group discussion, never start a second conversation with someone near you, even if the speaker isn't including you when sharing eye contact with others in the group. Don't allow the speaker's lack of courtesy to prevent you from being a good listener. I'm just going to say, I could probably tell so many stories on this chapter and talk for 6 hours on it, and I'm sure Kirby could too, and his would probably be about me. But this is something that we all have to work on. And here's the thing. I feel like I'm a pretty good listener because lots of people want to come tell me their problems, and I usually am a good listener. And Kirby and I have a relative that that never listens. I mean, literally, as soon as you shut up, she is saying whatever she wants to say, and it is never about what you were talking about, ever. Like, she never continues the conversation with what I'm saying. Like, she just has to start her own conversation as soon as I'm done. She never asks any questions about, like, what I was saying or continues that conversation. I think it's so rude and maybe just immature and someone who just does not know how to make conversation. I don't really know. But typically when you're in a conversation, I mean, for me, when I'm in a conversation and somebody is talking to me about something, I'm going to say, well, tell me about this, well, what happened then? Well, how did that go? I'm always going to keep it going and ask them some questions about it to let them know I'm interested in what they have to say. I'm trying to be empathetic. I'm trying to talk to them and then, and make the conversation, let them know they're important and what they have to say matters. And that stuff is important to me because I know what it feels like when someone that I'm talking to completely changes the subject and doesn't say one more word about my conversation. It's annoying, it's disrespectful, it's all of those things, and it's definitely not a good listener. So, Kirby, I'll give it to you for your thoughts.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What did you say? No, just kidding. I was employing the 2-second rule there. This is really an important skill. Okay, as it said, important skill to master if you want to build relationships, meaningful relationships, he said. And I read this morning, and I listened to the 10 points. And I thought, okay, that's great. That's awesome, great advice. It is. But there's kind of a deeper meaning or message this morning that I think hit me as I was reading through this, and it has to do with what's actually happening when you're listening or not listening. When you're having a conversation with somebody, there's a lot of feeling going on. There's a lot of emotion happening there, and I made some notes just of some things that he said, that you demonstrate your interest in what is being said and your respect for the individual saying it. So respect is a big part of what's going on in this conversation, whether you're engaging with that person or not, they're feeling respected or not respected. And you're building trust and rapport. Trust is, you wouldn't think just having a conversation would have anything to do with trust necessarily, but you're building trust and rapport if you are respecting conversation. And I made the note that someone not listening, how did it make you feel? And Cindy said this: unimportant, disrespected, ignored. I mean, these are feelings that can be generated by how you engage or not engage with a conversation when you're having a conversation with somebody. Now, Todd Smith talked about his dad. I'll talk about my dad for a second. One of the things that he taught me as a kid, because when I was young, I was always intimidated by adults. They were bigger than me. They were smarter than me. They knew more. And I was always shy around them. So Dad would always say, look them in the eye, take their hand, and look them in the eye, which was, as a child, as a kid, kind of hard for me to do that because I was so intimidated by these bigger people. But it's really good advice to look somebody in the eye and stay focused on them and really look intently and listen to what it is that they're saying, and that shows respect. Now, I also looked at, it made me think of a book that I have on my bookshelf, an old copy, a 1952 copy, actually, this is, of Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which, by the way, is on probably the top of my most recommended book list, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in there it said that the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important, the desire to be important. And when you're listening to somebody, you're not respecting what it is that they have to say or making eye contact with them or listening to them or engaging in the conversation, that's what's going on here. You're not feeding that desire to be important. People want to be heard. They want to be respected. And by interrupting somebody on section number 4 here, it said that shows, if you don't interrupt them, that shows respect. And on number 6, show a sincere interest, values them as individuals. So people can feel valued or not valued simply by how you engage in the conversation. And the demonstrative lack of interest indicates that you think what you have to say, what they have to say, is unimportant. So all these things factor into how a person may feel, or you. So I guess what I'm getting at, what I got out of this morning, is how I engage in a conversation can build or destroy someone's worth or value, or how they feel about themselves, or how they think I feel about them, based on how engaged in the conversation I am with them. So those were a couple thoughts I had this morning, Cindy, and I'll give it back to you for any other thoughts that you might have.
Well, this book is, I don't even know how old it is, but 12 years or however old it is. And I believe if Todd Smith were writing this today, he would have one point on don't be looking at your cell phone when someone is speaking to you. I know I'm guilty of it, and I try not to, but I can't even tell you how many people do it to me. It's like having a conversation, and they're staring at their phone, and you're like, I just stopped talking. Oh, Kirby stopped talking when I'm doing it. I just stop talking. And they're like, oh, I'm listening. I'm thinking, no, you're not. How are you reading your text and looking at your phone while you're listening to me? It's so disrespectful. I mean, it really is disrespectful. And you want to just say, you know what, let's just do this conversation another day, because you obviously are not interested in what I have to say, and you're more interested in what's in your phone. So I believe totally that would be one of these points if he were to write this book today. So he says on his challenge, my guess is if you are like me, you believe you know the right thing to do and you think you're a decent listener, but can you get better? Will you commit to showing you care about people by incorporating these 10 tips into your daily routine? Listening is one of those areas where we can always improve. And the last thing he says, being a good listener requires an intentional effort and a sincere interest in other people. It is a skill worth mastering. I totally 100% 100% believe this. So I encourage y'all to be a good listener today and see, see how it feels, and see if you notice when you think people are listening to you and when they're not, how it makes you feel. So I'll give it to you to close out, Kirby.
All right, thanks, Cindy. And I was thinking the same thing you were thinking about, the looking at your cell phone thing. You have an amazing ability, Cindy. I don't know how you do this. I'll say something to her while she's looking at her phone, and she won't respond. And then several minutes later, say, "Did you hear what I said?" And she'll repeat it back exactly like I said, but she doesn't respond. I'm like, "So you heard me, but you didn't respond. You weren't really listening." She was listening, but not really listening. So to Cindy's point about trying to be a better listener, let's all think about that as we engage in other conversations today and as we go forward. Can we be a better listener? Yeah, I think we can all be a better listener. We can all pay more attention and respect other people and build them up just by paying attention. So with that, I'm going to punch some magic buttons here and unmute the lines.